Hey guys, I just want to welcome you back to this quarter's speaker series, and it's a pleasure to have David Yeargin with us. It's actually the first time we've been able to do the speaker series in person, which is really cool. So, welcome, David. Thanks for your willingness to help us learn during the next few minutes. David started with us in August, and he'll be ending his internship here just in a couple of weeks in December. And those who've had the opportunity to hang out with David, it's been a blessing, and he has been tremendous for the business. His character has been awesome to include into our culture. We'll miss David, but wish David the best of luck, and hopefully maybe get a chance to bring him back into the business full time when he graduates here shortly. So those who haven't had the opportunity to spend time with David, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're about, David.
Yeah, so I'm David. I am from Clemson, South Carolina. I am a senior at Clemson, majoring in graphic communications. I've been there for the past 21 years, and I've lived in Clemson the past 2.
Yeah.
So from a very small town, grew up there.
Yeah, so that's great. Maybe tell us a little bit something about you that's unique, or maybe you haven't shared with anyone since you've been up here.
I'd say for me, I'm a very emotional person. And I think for a lot of people, that throws them off. I think when people look at me, they see very abrasiveness. They see my beard, they see my dreads, all those kind of things, my nose ring. Yeah. And I can come across as very abrasive, but like I'm a very emotional person and I'm very empathetic with people. And so for me, that's something that I take a lot of pride in because I love relating to other people and caring for other people.
Yeah, that's actually excellent. And maybe I'd love to tie that into a question I have for you here in a minute. But before I go down to that question, I'd love to hear from you on what made you decide to come to IDL. You know, we go to the intern day and students have the opportunity to talk to dozens of businesses. And, for us, we want to get the best talent, and we think we got it certainly with you. But what made you decide to come spend the fall semester here in Pittsburgh?
Yeah. So when I was going through the internship process and I was looking through companies to apply for, IDL came up multiple times. I had a conversation with Jill back in March, and this was during our intern employer day, and I was going around meeting a bunch of different companies, and it felt very fast. But even within the short, brief time I had with Jill initially, I felt IDL was different compared to the other companies. I did some preliminary work before looking at some of the companies that I was interested in interning with. And I looked at IDL and I came across what they printed and what all the things that they also did. And I thought that was really cool. But when I came across the section about their core values and beliefs and about wanting to be more diverse and inclusive in the workplace, that was something that really spoke to me personally. Being African American, I want to work for a company that truly values me as a person, not just what I can do, but as a person and what I can bring to that company. And I really felt that IDL truly respected me because of who I was as a person first instead of what I could do. And that was something that I think IDL has truly stood out amongst the other competitors.
Yeah. So that's great and amazing. So do you feel that we delivered on that promise now that you've been with us since August?
Yeah, absolutely. My first day here, I felt so welcomed. There's a lot of people that I met my first day here, and it was just a very overwhelming, but in a good way. Lots of people came and introduced themselves to me, gave me the contact information, and really made themselves very accessible to me. And that has extended well beyond just the first day here. Like even the fact that I'm getting to sit here and talk to you, I don't think that's very common amongst many other companies, being able to just casually talk to the president. And so that's something that I think that IDL's really shown me the past couple of months that I've been here, is that everyone's really accessible and friendly.
Yeah, it's great. It's certainly the culture we're trying to drive. It's interesting because, now that we're more aware of, the diversity and inclusion of, the situations within the U.S. just are causing some of the divisions. We never really thought about IDL as a safe place to come as an African American, and as I'm more aware of it, I certainly look around and don't see many, that look like you. We also know we're in a community that is a very white community. And so for you as a Black student coming up to a very white Butler area into a very white organization, has there been any learnings or that you've had, or you could share with us on how, maybe opening our mind on being more aware of situations. Maybe it goes back to, how you look. Like you can walk in somewhere and people may jump to a conclusion just based off of your dreads and like what, you could come across intimidating. So are there situations you ran into while you were here that could help us maybe be more understanding of things you deal with?
Yeah. So just to even give you more context about who I am. So I'm from Clinton, South Carolina. I grew up in a town in Lawrence County, South Carolina. It was a very small county. It's predominantly white, like 85%. And so my entire life, I grew up mostly being the only Black kid in the classroom and things like that. And so I'm very used to me being in a minority space where I'm the only minority. And so when I came here to Butler, it was a very similar experience to even being back home, very small town. Unfortunately, I would see and experience things back home, like being accused of being a thief or things like that in the grocery store, getting the awkward looks and being followed around the store and things like that. Like I've seen that in my own personal experience, and like also like just seeing like Confederate flags being flying around like daily. I see that here too. And I think for me, a lot of the experiences that I've had back home have really shaped and transformed me in a way that whenever I go into a new context, I'm very self-aware in that I don't place myself in any situations that I feel like may be unsafe for me. And so there's been times where I go downtown, but I'm very like hyper aware of where I am and trying to make sure that I'm paying attention to my surroundings, that I don't want to be taken advantage of, or like I don't want to be in a situation where someone could possibly mistake me and think that I have bad intentions or anything like that. And so during my time here, I feel like I personally haven't experienced a lot of that, but it is something that I've always kept on my mind because I just know it's a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's for me a personal learning I've had over the last couple of years is so many situations I put myself in, or I don't think about something that could happen because of the color of my skin, because this doesn't exist. And the more I talk to friends of color, like more I realize that you always are thinking through that possibility, and it's been for me pretty eye-opening learning because it's just not something I've dealt with, and so I appreciate you sharing that story. So you had talked about being from a small town in South Carolina where you were used to kind of a Butler feel. The town you came from isn't a whole lot different than Butler. But for us to continue to bring Black and minority candidates into our facility, often they may not be willing to live in this community. So, like, what are some advice you can give us to continuing to create that pipeline to talent that may not be willing to come into this area?
Yeah. So I would say I think it starts with management. I think it starts upper level, and so really, like the opportunity I have right now to be able to talk to you, I think that's super important as a company to be able to be front facing in that they are trying to be diverse and inclusive, and let people know that potential hires know that this is something that the company values and something that it is striving for, and also just expanding horizons. And so it might be hard in Butler County, but there's other counties within PA and different states as well. Yeah. And so I think IDL is a great company, and it has a lot of things that are just unique to IDL that I haven't experienced in any other corporate setting. And so I think there's a lot of things that are already in place here at IDL that could work really well. But I also just think it has to be presented in such a way that people who may not necessarily think of IDL or have even heard of IDL, making it accessible to people like that, I think could be a possibility for people to want to actually work here. Yeah.
So one of the things we've talked a lot about is marketing, and we've gotten much better from a social perspective by having a voice out there for IDL, and we want that voice to represent diversity, and I think sometimes there's concern that by always trying to include a minority in a photo that it's so contrived, and it feels like maybe it's just the token employee that we're using for a marketing piece, and I don't want that to be the reason we're using minorities in social and in video, but also think it's important that we are using it to represent that the diversity. Is there thoughts you can share with us on how to go about that by showing it while not feeling like it's a forced situation?
Absolutely. I think it starts with first being intentional about the information that's being presented is being marketed. I think not trying to overrepresent what is the actual reality of the workplace. Like trying not to overrepresent it by what actually exists within the company, I think is really important. So for a social media post, for example, like not making a minority person the center of every single post when there's only like less than 2% within the company. I just think that's unfair and it sets unrealistic expectations because people that are looking at the company may portray that the company is more diverse than what it actually is. I think it can be considered deceiving by some people. And so I just think being intentional about how information is being marketed, but also just being upfront about what the actual representation of minorities within a company is.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's a great answer. So one of the things that I think you're most proud of was our outreach program and what you've been able to do at a local restaurant here. And some people listening to today may not be aware that we're doing that. I'd love for you just to share a little bit about that initiative and how that's impacted.
So Ryan came to me when I started back in August and was telling me about this project at the time within a local restaurant here in Pigs Fly, and an opportunity to be able to design some signage for them. And I was really excited. I didn't know much about the project at the time, but anytime that I get to be creative, I think I really want to lean into that and take initiative. And so I was on board the first day he told me about it. But then starting to learn even more about the entire project because he gave me free control over that. And so I went and talked with David, who's the owner of Open Pigs Fly. We had a meeting and we just talked about just his personal life, not even just things concerning the entire project, but just learning more about him as a business and him and his wife, Lisa, and how long they've been there and where they're from and their story. I think it's really important to me to be able to accurately portray people's stories and where they're from within a narrative. I think it's really cool. And so I wanted to really incorporate that within my designs and really take that into account whenever I was going over that project. And so we completed the project this past week and printed it. And so looking forward to we can install it soon. I'm really excited to be able to see the work that we've put in this entire time. There's been a lot of work, collaboration with the engineering department and product art. And so it's been a lot, but it's been a really enjoyable project. And I'm really excited for them to have this on their building to show the world. So
it's great. I can't wait to share that with everyone. It's been a great project. So just finishing up, I think one of my own biases is for Clemson. And so I will always create that pipeline. And so you and I were at the Clemson Pitt game, watching our Tigers lose, and unfortunately. So tell me about your feelings that day, because you've got a lot of Pitt people watching.
It was hard. It was a tough loss. I think we did a lot of things well, but also we just had a lot of mistakes. And so I was personally very upset, but I'm also going to root for my Tigers to the end. So I'm proud of the work that they've done all season. And this hasn't been the season that unfortunately we wanted, but I'm going to continue to love and support them.
Absolutely. And I will continue to have the bias.
As well. Me as well. So,
the bias. So, just appreciate David's time together. Those, again, who haven't met David, I think you can tell through today's video the authenticity of David. We have had such luck with interns, and I just love that we have this pipeline of talent through different universities. We've learned so much from the interns and what they've been able to bring, and it's amazing, David, in 3 months, 4 months of being with us, how quickly we found interns integrating into our culture and allowing the culture to impact them. And at the same point, how much we've learned through interns coming into our business and learn from them. So it's been a real treat. We'll continue to stay connected as you finish up your last year. And I'm hoping that there's at one point we'll be able to bring David back full time into the business, which would be great. So again, thank you guys for today's time in our speaker series. I love the fact that we can do it in person, and we will continue to work toward having these sessions, though, that we as a business can continue to learn and from each other and add value to each other's lives. So thank you guys, and we'll talk again next quarter.